What's up, guys? I'm going to talk about four different types of data scientists, and I'm going to give you some questions to ask yourself to determine if maybe this is the right career path for you. Um, Before I get into it, it's my birthday today. Just turned 20, no longer a teenager, and yeah, feel free to wish me a happy birthday in the comments if you're inclined. And let me get back into it. So data science, why? So, data science, it's apparently the sexiest job title of the 21st century. Now, in all honesty, I think it's a little bit overhyped, and it's also true that there's a lot of misconceptions. A lot of people think they like make some crazy AI that's going to turn into the Terminator and fucking kill all humanity. I think that's not really true. Or they see like the AI that beat the world's best Go player, and they think, okay, we're making these models that can kick our ass and Go. But that's not really the case. I'm going to talk a little bit more about some real data scientists and what they actually do. So the first type of data scientist, and I'm going to talk about, I like to call them the data translator. Now, the more official term here is often data analyst, but I like to call them the data translator because they essentially translate data into something that we all can understand. So, going into that, these people work at very large companies, and these companies have obviously tons of data at their fingertips because they're generating tons of data. And this data is often stored in a database of some sort, which is often put together by software engineering and data engineering teams. And then the data analysts, they communicate with people that are not really in the tech space or not really like developers. Oftentimes you're going to be communicating or working with finance, marketing, or C-level executives, as well as investors and people that aren't really in the company but are invested in the company. These people are often called external stakeholders. And you identify their needs and identify what they want to know about their data and what types of things could help them, what insights could help them do better and move the company forward. So once they identify kind of what data they need, they go into the database and get the data they need, and then they present their findings in a way that people that don't know how to code can fully understand. This means they've got visually appealing graphs and charts that can capture people's attention, and they don't use any weird like math or tech terms that these people won't understand. So that is essentially what they do. And some questions to ask yourself if this is the role for you. So the first one is if you have a non-technical background, maybe you come from economics, finance, or marketing, or maybe something else, but I know these three are kind of related to what data analytics is. Also, if you're not crazy about machine learning. Now, if, a lot of people are really excited about machine learning and they're just like, oh yeah, I just want to build models all day. Obviously, that's not really the real world, but there are jobs that involve that, but these jobs don't involve that, and you don't really need to understand machine learning. So if that's something that you aren't really interested in learning a whole bunch about, you don't really have to for this role. Also, if you love making colorful graphs and charts and visualizations of other types, that's great because that's a lot of what you're going to be doing. I've talked to a guy that has a very similar role to this, and that's one of the things that he really likes about his job, or at least was one of the things that drew him towards data science. So next type of data scientist is I call them the classic data scientist. This is what I think of when I think of data science. And these people, they do take on that exact same role that the data translator or data analyst takes on, but they have a little more responsibility than that because they also have to, not all the time, but they often have to build models and machine learning models that that provide recommendations, predictions, classifications, or flag anomalies. Classic example of flagging an anomaly is making a model or AI that can predict credit card fraud or maybe diagnose people with cancer. Something that's like, it's very rare for it to be the case, but you want to be able to flag it when it happens. Recommendations, that's Netflix, Spotify giving you songs and movies to watch. Um, you know, what else? The classifications and predictions, that should be pretty self-explanatory. But the reason why they take on more work than this and do this type of analyst work plus also the machine learning is because the company isn't as big. They only have a couple hundred to a couple thousand employees usually, and because they don't have as many employees and they don't have as much budget for hiring people, they kind of mix and mesh the jobs, because there's actually separate people. These AI machine learning people, they have separate people for that at the big companies as well, depending on the company. But anyway, this position often does require more education. You traditionally needed grad school to be able to do this. Now you can basically replace grad school with a data science boot camp, assuming you put in the work necessary. But it does require years. It really does require a lot of experience to be qualified. Um, but going into this a little more, some questions to ask yourself is maybe you accidentally come across it. For example, a lot of people that get into this type of role, they actually came across data science and machine learning techniques on accident. I've talked to two people where this is the case for them. One of them, she had a PhD in molecular biology, and she had to study all of these, probably millions, maybe even billions of molecules within brain cells. And there was no way she could have possibly, or anyone on her team could have possibly been able to, understand and, make inferences from that giant amount of data, but the computer could. So they were able to use that to help with their research. Another guy, he was a sociology PhD, and he conducted enormous surveys with tens of thousands of, maybe even hundreds of thousands of people and submissions. And again, there was no way the team could have possibly just looked through every single candidate, or not candidate, but every single subject. They had to have ways to automate the process and use machine learning and computers to analyze this data. So another thing is, again, if you have a scientific background, again, because data science, as it's called science, hypothesis testing and knowing the scientific method and scientific research practices are really, really important. Also, sometimes a lot of people that get into this, they have experience in a very technical role, maybe often software engineering, for example, and they really get into machine learning, and they also want to be more on the business side of things rather than just being a developer that just like blah 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 blah, looking like Mark Zuckerberg in The Social Dilemma or social network, I should say, not dilemma. and they want to start getting more into machine learning, and this can be a great way to do that. That's why I'm presuming really popular data science blog called Towards Data Science. That's probably why it's called that. It's geared for software engineers that are looking to move towards data science. So the next type of data science is the full stack data scientist. And this type of data scientist is they are responsible for literally everything. So they have to collect the data. They have to set up the data collection, the data storage, database, whatever. They've got to basically figure out where to store the data, where to get the data, how to get the data. They're all things data. And then they do the analysis, like I talked about, that these other previous types of data scientists do. And then they build the machine learning models. And they even have to go as far as to operationalize it, which means basically use the cloud, the Amazon or Google Cloud, to host the models, and make sure that the AI is actually incorporated in the software or app provided. Which leads me to my other point, that these companies, they're very small, often very small AI startups that have full stack data scientists. Oftentimes these data scientists might actually be the founder themselves. And a common example may be, let's say you're an app that's working on some type of text-to-speech application or face recognition application or something, just an app or software that directly uses AI as part of the product and service offered. Because of that, there's a lot of pressure on these data scientists, because in Google, for example, or let's just not necessarily Google, let's just say any big company, maybe you're just looking at how the question is how can we increase conversion rate by 5%? And then you're gonna go in there and look at the sales funnel and look at the email campaigns or whatever, and analyze them and figure out kind of how can we change what we're doing to have a better outcome. This is you're actually the product. You're actually making the product that the users use. It's not necessarily business strategy. It's more it's not the strategy, it's the actual product, So if your model is shit, then your product is shit. Whereas at these other companies, if your model is shit, then your insights and strategy development might not be as good. So big difference there. And they move fast oftentimes, and as startups, pretty much everything in the book can go wrong at any given time, so it's very stressful. Not speaking from experience here, but it's very stressful and hectic. Now I'm going to talk about some signs that it's for you. So first, if you feel bored at a comfortable 9 to 5, if you're just at a 9 to 5 and you got your 40 hours a week, and then you have your weekends and all your friends are lame, and it's fuck this, I'd just rather be working anyway. Maybe this could be a good path for you. Another one is if you love startups. Again, some people are really, really into the whole startup culture thing. If you've ever seen The Social Network, I just referenced it a minute ago, but great movie, very inspiring. If that's kind of how you want to live, then be my guest. Go ahead. And if you're okay with working a lot, I'm talking probably 80 hours a week, quite honestly, and living off of ramen noodles, because you're not going to be making that much money. The company will have very little funding. But aside from the ramen, I hope if you choose this route, you could find something healthier than ramen, because that's probably not the healthiest option. Okay. Now, number 4 is the research scientist. And again, just a fair warning, I might kind of butcher this one here. I've never actually met anyone that does this, but it's just I've done a little bit of research here. Um, and the research scientists, they work on the AI at the really big companies. They kind of pick up where the data analysts leave off. Now, there's kind of two different types within this group. There are some people that work on the AI at the really big companies that we actually use. So like these are the people behind our Netflix recommendations, YouTube recommendations, that kind of stuff. And then the other types, they're out there working on the really big, sexy things that aren't actually really used in the real world. Except, we're starting to see self-driving cars. They may be working on self-driving cars. The AI that that beat the world's best Go player, the AI that beat the world champs in some video game. Uh, this all this like weird shit you're hearing about in the AI space, and for either way between these types of research scientists, these require the most education. Almost always you have to almost all these people have a PhD. That's basically what you need. There are some people that can get in with just a master's. I was just hearing about this guy that got into the research scientist at Amazon that just made it with only a master's, but he had a lot of research experience. So I think if you have enough research experience working on scientific research, even if you just have a master's, you can still get into the field. Um, so, just some questions to ask yourself is if you're a very academic person that wants to go the PhD route, and you're passionate about scientific research, and also if you want to, I'd say as I listed, do things that's never been done before. Oftentimes, you're working on things that probably may not even get used for the next 5, maybe even 10 years. But if you really like just working on theoretical concepts that may possibly happen, then this is kind of the place for you. If you want to work more with what's already working, then I would say the other three would probably be of some sort would probably be better. Um, so anyway, that wraps up the video. I know this went very long, but I don't really see how I could have made this much faster. And just leave a like. I'm really tired, and I want to just go to sleep. But then my birthday will end, and it'll be kind of sad. But yeah, till the next time.